Hiya kids, this is Ivan, and this is my first ever YouTube video. This video is partially a response, partially a friendly rebuttal, and partially an alternate take on a video that was posted back in August of 2010 called RPG Ponderings Old School versus Modern Games. And this video was originally posted by Tetsubo57, who has an excellent YouTube channel, and I highly recommend it. I am subscribed to it, where he waxes philosophical about everything from the silly RPGs that some of us like to play, to politics, to religion, and I find that he and I agree on most stuff. In fact, he posted a related video where he reviewed the Rules Cyclopedia, D&D Rules Cyclopedia, and I was cracking up because I had to laugh because I agreed with so much of what he said. Alignment languages, yeah, right, that's great. Racial level limits, not so much. I can understand the reason for them, but I don't particularly like them. Races class, yeah. In 1981, when I started playing Mulvey Basic, yeah, you could play an elf, and it was cool. But once I started playing First Edition, I said, hey, it's really cool. You can choose your race and your class, and it's different. And so, these are kind of some silly things, and we laugh at them. It's a history of the hobby, and it's great. But yeah, we agree on a lot of stuff. Now, he did make one tactical error, I think, in his video, where he said that he didn't see the need to return to the old school games, which that's cool. I understand, But he also said that he didn't feel that we needed to play them, and I'm pretty sure he meant to say he didn't need to play them. And based on his closing comments in that video and the other videos he's posted, I'm pretty sure that was just a slip of the tongue. So you get a get out of jail free card this time, buddy. But that's it. Now, he's right. He shouldn't be called on what game he wants to play. And if he wants to play Pathfinder, that's cool. Just because he started playing RPGs in 1978, he shouldn't be expected to carry the torch and be true to the fold and play those games. Nobody can tell anybody else what they like. And I co-moderate the Amplifiers forum on a website. Can you believe that? I co-moderate the Amps forum on a website called talkbass.com, and it's for electric bass guitar players and upright bass players. And every once in a while, somebody will come in and ask, what amplifier should I buy? I don't know. I can ask a lot of questions. What are your volume needs? What kind of tone do you like? And I can kind of point them in some directions. But I always tell them, look, this is a lot like you and I go to an ice cream parlor and you ask me, what flavor should you buy? I don't know. I like vanilla. Maybe you like Rocky Road. I'm probably not going to recommend the right flavor for you. And it's the same with bass guitar amplifiers and with role-playing games. Everybody likes different stuff, and that's cool. People like different stuff. James likes Pathfinder, and I play in a Pathfinder game. It is not my favorite game, but I have a blast playing it. I play with some really cool people. And for him, it hits the sweet spot, and I respect that because, as a DM, I want my game to hit the sweet spot. And it does what he wants to do. It's a turnkey game for him. He can get in, turn the key, go, and it has a large rule set, and he's comfortable playing with a large rule set. And what sucks for him is having to stop his game and make up a ruling on the spot. And I get that, because you should be able to play what you like. And as a DM, especially as a DM, you should feel comfortable playing the game. Now, for me, we'll just say Old School is 2nd edition and back. So that covers 1st edition, 2nd edition, Holmes Basic, Mulvey Basic or BX, Menser Basic or BCMI, Rules Cyclopedia, which is arguably, Menser Basic 2nd edition, and all the retro clones and the half clones like Castles and Crusades. They all kind of play the same way. Now, to be honest, I don't play any of those games. The games I play right now, when I DM, is kind of a combination between 1st edition and basic, and I even throw in some Pathfinder rules. And I'm comfortable with that. In my old age, because like him, I'm old. I'm not afraid to open the hood and tweak and make the game work for me and make it my own. And but if you were to play in one of my games, if I just gave you a character sheet and said, let's go play, it's all pre-gen character, or you were just watch me play, you'd be hard-pressed to figure out what edition it was for a while. And if I said this is 1st edition, it might take you like 5 minutes till we came to a rule or you looked into your character sheet and said, that doesn't look right. But it plays exactly the same, so it's old school. And for me, old school is my sweet spot for some reasons that I'll get into. Now, Some I disagree with him on terms of the permissiveness and restrictiveness on like old school games versus new school games, where people think that old school are more permissive and new school or modern games are more restrictive. A little bit, I agree with that assessment, just because in the Pathfinder game sometimes I'll try to do something really wacky and it's like, well, you don't have that feat, or you don't have something. It's either you can't do it or it's really going to suck. And like, but I'm okay with that. But that is, I can definitely see that. And I also see with some younger, chronologically challenged gamers that they tend to be a little bit more concrete. And if you look at the forums, they'll ask, is this okay, and what should I do? And I was like that when I was young, and I was afraid to open the hood and tweak the rules or just make some calls or do whatever. So I think, part of that is just a younger gamer thing, and that's okay because I was young and youth is great. But on to the main topic. There's two things. James likes Pathfinder as it hits his sweet spot and it does what he wants it to do. This is cool. For me, the older school game hits the sweet spot. What we disagree on really is the number of rules needed to get that sweet spot. Whether the rules that cover almost everything are a feature or a flaw. And for him, they're a feature. For me, they're a flaw. But I'll tell you that my game is guilty as charged. Things are missing. It is incomplete. Compared to Pathfinder's 4 or 5 holes that you might need to plug up when you need to make a judgment call because the rule doesn't cover it, my game has 40 or 50 holes, and I will have to plug these patches a lot more frequently. I'm comfortable with that. And I disagree a little bit that the idea of less rules and having to come up with rulings on the spot is a flaw for me. For me, it's a feature. I respect, though, that for him having to stop his game and coming up with a ruling on the spot is not fun for him. I get that. We're different. Now, for me, having to stop my game to look up a rule is not fun. So that's where we kind of disagree. As a player, large rule set doesn't bug me. In Pathfinder game, I'm cool with that. If I don't know the rule, the DM knows it, another player knows it. Even though I need to know more rules playing Pathfinder, from the get-go, I need to know what my skills and feats and stuff are, as opposed to first edition or basic. I'm cool with that because I really don't need to juggle that many rules. As a DM, you need to know the rules, and you need to be comfortable with the system, because when you're the DM, you're driving the bus. You need to adjudicate stuff, you need to interface with the rules. You're pretty much the conduit for which all these rules go through to get to the players and for the game to work. And for me, playing a larger rule set becomes a bummer. Now, Pathfinder has a lot of rules. Pathfinder is an excellent, well-written game. Hats off to them. It's a great extension and improvement on the 3.5 rules. It's arguably the best-selling RPG out there at the moment. And the company Paizo is fantastic. They seem to be very savvy. They seem to understand gamers. They seem to be more ethical, more friendly than the company that currently owns the D&D franchise. But that is a different topic. Now, for me, managing a bunch of rules and having to stop the game and look them up becomes so tedious that it's no longer fun. In my game, I took my old 1EDM screen and I took all the rules, some of the tweaks and stuff I made, and I taped them all up on top of the screen, and I have all the rules that I ever need to reference right there in front of me, and there's not a lot of them. And then when it comes time to make a call, when something's not in the rule, I have a whole bunch of mechanics, a whole toolbox of mechanics that I can use to adjudicate rules and to use as randomizers. And we're all familiar with them. I might say you have percentage chance, roll percentile dice. I might say you have to roll high on a d20 and add your ability score modifier. I might say you have to roll low on a d20. You want to roll lower than your ability score, or roll on 4d6 because it's really hard, or 5d6, roll lower than your ability score. And I know what the probabilities of these things are. I like math. I dig that stuff. So I try to be as consistent as possible. I try to know what the probabilities are as much as possible, but I have a bunch of tools. Now, I understand the allure and the elegance of a unified mechanic. I get it. I wish unified mechanics worked all the time. For me, I find that they work about 95% of the time. They work great, and about 5% of the time they spit out nonsense. And that's something you just have to be aware of and tweak. And, that's okay. There are some, one of the retro clones out there, which is kind of like a half clone, has a mechanic which is great, but every once in a while it'll spit out this bizarre result where all of a sudden the party cleric is better at tracking than the party ranger, and you're like, okay, we got to fix that. Now, for me, patching up these holes, stopping the game, patching up a hole, making a call takes less time than actually opening a book and finding the rule. I can adjudicate something, I can come up with a thing in about 1 to 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a really long time. And I can do that. And, my Pathfinder game, the DM is excellent, and it's amazing. Once or twice a game, there's something that comes up that, he doesn't know the rule, he knows it must be in there somewhere. He opens up that giant book, and, oh my God, there's a rule. And he says, he rolls dice, or we roll dice, and he tells us what happens, and life goes on, and it's great. For me, I just make the judgment call, and life goes on, and it's great. But what happens? It's going to be a little bit inconsistent when I make these calls, just like James said. Now, is that a flaw? Is that a feature? Is that good? Is that bad? Is that neutral? What is it? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're in The Hobbit, and you're one of the dwarves, and you've just escaped from the goblin caves, and you've got to run, and the goblins and the wolves are now chasing you, and you have to climb up a tree, or you're going to die. And say I'm the DM, and I say, okay, well, you've got a 60% chance of climbing up this tree, and because you have a 16 dexterity, you can add 11 to that, so you have a 71% chance of climbing up this tree. But say we do this again, and I say, you need to roll an 11 or better on a d20, but because you have a 16 dexterity, you can add 2 to that roll. So now all of a sudden, you have a 60% chance of success. Say a third time, I say you have to roll lower than your dexterity on a d20, so you got to roll 15 or lower, and all of a sudden you have a 75% chance of success. And fourth time, you're having a really bad day with goblins and wolves. Okay, I say you have to roll 46 and roll lower than your dexterity, and all of a sudden you have a 66.44% chance of success. 4 different times of the same scenario, 4 different results in terms of what your chances are. Now, I stack the deck. I know what these probabilities are. I could have just as easily come up with numbers where they were 20 or 30% off. What's the deal? What's going on? Well, to me, here's the deal. We use dice. Game's random. If I tell you roll high, you're going to die. You roll 2, sucks to be you. You roll 16, hooray, you got up the tree. Now, you roll 2, I have to adjudicate what happens. Maybe your shoelaces got stuck. Maybe you had a bad tree. Which brings up the thing. Maybe you had a bad tree. You may climb a tree 4 different times. There may be 4 different trees. Some may be slippery. Some may have bad branches. Some may have branches that are too high. Now, I'm not saying that I'm intentionally trying to mimic real life, because real life is not consistent. But what I am saying is that kind of gives me a little bit of a justification, a little bit of an out, that if I screw up and I give you a different mechanic or a different chance of success, this isn't as bad as it seems to be. This is what real life is like. And, unless it's really far off, like, we're talking like 50% difference, it's not a big deal. And as a player, if a DM does that, it's not a big deal. I want to roll the dice and keep playing. I don't want to wait and look up a rule. Now, the other thing is I can understand a lot of gamers want to know exactly what their chances are. They're very tactically oriented. And my take on that is this. Look, in real life, when you're faced with a weird thing or a challenge, you don't know what your exact chances are. And your character doesn't know either. Now, as a DM, I will tell you pretty much, you got about this much of a chance. But, normally you have this thing, this task you got to do, and you're going to say, there's no way I can do that. You're going to say, maybe. You're going to say, 50-50. You'll say, yeah, I think I can do that. Or you're going to say, yeah, no problem. And that's the way I look at what your characters know. You're not going to know, I have a 66.44% chance of climbing up this tree. No, you know the ballpark. And so, for me, sometimes I think that tactical, exercise part, where you really start to think of all these, what your chances are exactly, that to me kind of takes away a little bit of the fun of the game. Because for me, the game is playing make-believe and gambling all at the same time.